allowing vaccination cards for travel in lieu of RT-PCR tests.
Infectious disease expert Jean Solante says it's still too early to tell whether the Lambda variant is more transmissible than other COVID-19 mutations.
You look at the experience that we have now in some other countries like UK, where the Delta variant has been one of the important variants circulating, when some of these COVID vaccines are still effective despite the data that reduce efficacy of the vaccine.
Variant of interest, we need more evidence for us to say that this really significantly affects the population. Katulad nung alpha, nung beta, nung gamma at saka nung delta na mga variants. So pinag-aaralan ng lambda variant, pero ang sinasabi na ho ng mga nakaka-experience nito na countries, it is more transmissible.
With more than 1.4 million cases and more harmful COVID-19 variants, the Department of Health is racing to control transmission by vaccinating 70 million Filipinos by the end of this year. But will the DOH achieve this target with a slow vaccination process? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this Wednesday edition of The Chiefs. With us, of course, is Robbie Alampay on set of One News. Also with us online, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Ladies and Robbie, well, happy Wednesday. It's hump day.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday!
Okay. I suppose we should go straight to our guest.
daming
we have a
tanong.
cabinet member online with us tonight. Of course, we're talking about Health Secretary Francisco Duque III. Secretary Duque, thank you for joining us. And finally, welcome back to The Chiefs.
Good evening, Secretary.
Good evening, Secretary.
Good evening, Sec!
Hi, good evening, Annie, Lucy, and of course Ed and Robbie. Good evening to you and above all to all your viewers.
Yes, sir. Na-miss namin kayo, sir.
Oo nga.
Busy naman talaga.
So, and dati kasi hapon tayo eh.
Oh, tama yun, sir. That's also true.
Pero face-to-face yon. Ngayon, at least online na lang, sir. And
Eh, mas
yeah,
namimiss ko yung face-to-face sa totoo lang. Namimiss ko yung face-to-face sa totoo lang.
Well, yes, sir. It does make for more engaging conversations when you do things face-to-face. Anyway, sir,
Yes.
I'm almost tempted to ask you first about politics, pero sige, itabi muna natin yan. Let's talk about something more important, which is of course, COVID-19.
Hindi maintindihan yung boses mo.
Yes, sir.
Choppy.
Yes, sir. Well, I wanted to ask you about politics, pero itabi muna natin yun. Let's talk about something more urgent, which of course would be COVID-19. Some clarity, sir, on IATF Resolution 124B. Kasi parang may conflicting reports nung Sunday na papayagan ng interzonal travel na walang COVID testing. Pero mukhang binawi siya yesterday or today. So which
Today
is it po?
lang.
Today.
Today po?
Today,
Yeah,
yes.
today.
Bakit, sir?
Well,
Bakit?
binawi natin kasi yung mga local chief executives, yung sentiment nila, sabi nila, dahil sila mag-i-implement, mahirapan sila dahil hindi alam paano daw ma-validate yung vax card, yung vaccination card. Paano daw kung peke. Paano daw. So maraming operational issues, no? So tomorrow, we have invited the League of the Provinces, League of Provinces, si Governor Presby Velasco, si Governor Dax Pua, si Mayor Bing Leonardia, and Mayor Chavit Singson. And they will articulate the sentiments of their constituents, no? Na mahihirapan daw sila. Mas gusto nila na meron pa rin silang option to require testing using RT-PCR. RT-PCR lang, hindi pwedeng antigen or antibody test. So tomorrow, we hope to be able to resolve this hanging issue and hopefully agree. No? But ang sa akin nga, kung takot sila sa fake na vaccination card, eh iba yung testing eh, naririnig din natin, pinepeke din ng mga iba.
Actually, sir, madaling mag-scan tsaka mag-print eh. Kaya medyo alanganin.
Ganun
Not unless you have a
Pwede
database
yung
talaga eh.
yung position
But precisely, sir, that to Ed's point, no, I don't know if you caught that, but it all goes down to having a database, having a
Yes.
system, so that makes the question, because we were talking about databases and information and data from testing, contact tracing, all the way to dito sa mga QR codes that are being used by different LGUs. It's always a question that comes up. So it begs the question, bakit nga ba wala yung database? I mean, bakit now that we're testing, again, this does not seem to have been anticipated that this could have been on the back end supported by database that all LGUs and for that matter, the national government can all use.
Yeah, in fairness, no, the Department of Information and Communications Technology, DICT, has already, as of yesterday, encoded about 3.6 million of the 12 million vaccinees, okay? And it has also encoded out of the 3.6 million vaccinees, about 867,000, those with 2 jabs already. So it's a work in progress. But you're right, we cannot do this without the technology underpinning. So that is what is being pursued right now by the DICT, no? With the support of the local government units who already adopted, for example, their own contact tracing apps, yung mga ibang mga apps nila, magkakaroon na interoperability na. So yung DICT will provide instant authentication or certification that a person has already been jabbed using the phone. You know, like what they do in America or in other countries. Telepono na lang naka-QR code, doon makikita mo, jab, with Pfizer, lot number. So, pamunta na tayo dyan. But in the interim, yung Vax card muna tayo and hopefully, walang mangmemeke kasi pagka pineke ito, it's a serious offense. It is a falsification of a public document. No? Medyo mabigat ang kaparusahan dito.
Sir, 2 months ago kasi nilaunch yung Stay Safe app. Is there any way to integrate that with Stay Safe, for example? Because it's already there. I mean, Stay Safe is already there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Secretary, with all due respect, gumagamit ako ng Stay Safe eh. Ang dali-daling ipeke ng information doon. And saka pag medyo mahina yung connection, wala na, that's it. In fact, yung mga malls hindi na ginagamit, maraming malls hindi ginagamit eh. But anyway, hindi ba dapat napag-usapan muna yan na dapat may database o kaya kahit man lang merong security feature or uniform QR code na ilagay din sa vaccination cards? Kasi sabi ni Mayor Abby Binay kanina, ang tagal-tagal na daw pinag-uusapan DICT yung maayos sanang vaccination card na yan, ang database, hanggang ngayon daw wala pa.
Idagdag ko lang po, Secretary. I mean, because I think a lot of our viewers might be thinking the same thing. When you sign up for vaccination, more often than not, except for Manila that allowed walk-ins, but when you sign up for you go through a website, you use an app, more often than not, it generates a QR code. All the elements are there, and people have already volunteered all of their information. Nandun yung appointment, nandun yung schedule. Even people who miss their schedules get alerts on their phones. Na-miss mo so you're officially listed as no-show, and so on. But the point is, all the elements were there for people who showed up. Why did it not? Why did the data stop there and seem to have gone nowhere?
Yeah, the best person to answer that is the USEC, si Manny Kaintik. No? I'm not a techie guy. Mahirap sagutin yung tanong ninyo, save for the fact that my latest information is pagdating dito sa vaccine card authentication, this will soon be supplanted by the vaccine information management system that's being set up. It has begun development. It continues to evolve. So according to USEC Manny Kaintik, the National Vaccine Operations Center has already warned, in fact, the LGUs na you have to upload your names of your vaccinees, no? And this will be encoded in the database using the veins of the ICT. So tayo na natin kasi naka 3.6 million na in just I think 10 days. So palagay ko meron silang milestone by July 15, 50% yata. Kailangan nakapasok na. And by July 31st, lahat na. Baka maging real time na nga daw. So let's be a bit more patient. But the system is already there. So it's really just waiting for that system to mature until such time that there's higher confidence in using this. Because last week kasi nung niran nila, pagka in-access mo, ano nangyayari, records cannot be found. You know, so na-frustrate sila.
Nawala ba siya?
Sir?
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 No,
Yeah.
Wala.
I think he's checking something.
may chinecheck
I'm
lang.
just, check ko lang ito. Bakit yung telepono ko? Yan, okay na. Okay, sorry about that. Somebody's calling. Okay.
Yes, you were saying that as of July 31, you were checking it yesterday. Na-cut off yung copy niyo, sir.
Sinabi niyo po, hindi ma-retrieve yung information. Hindi po
Hindi
nare-retrieve.
ma-retrieve. Yeah. Naiinis si Secretary Berna expressed to us in our last IATF meeting na every time she would access kung ano yung kanyang vaccination status, titignan niya nakalagay, records not found.
Not found. Oo.
Kasi nga, kakaunti pa lang. Yung line list nila, napaka-nipis so, but yesterday, dapat 3.6 million na. So, tingnan natin by July 15, kung maabot nila yung 6 million. And then hopefully, mga 12 to 14 million by the end of the month. And then real time.
Okay, Secretary Duque, the other, of course, kasabay niya, parallel to that, is the vaccine rollout itself. And again, we're reporting delays in the delivery of some vaccines. And parang kumbaga, yung ine-expect natin na magdadagsa sana this month, hindi na naman natutuloy. And in fact, yung latest information is Sputnik, na madidelay at binago pa yung standard to 90 days. So where does that leave all those who have been wanting to, who've been lining up to be vaccinated, and all those who have been given the first dose of vaccine?
Yeah, we have advised the local chief executives. Of course, we explain what has been causing the delay in the delivery of expected volumes of Sinovac, of AstraZeneca, Sputnik. So nagkaroon ng mga naantala. But we told them, dapat, you should already pursue the second jab. Meron na kayong dose for the second jab, umpisahan nyo na yung second dose niyo. Kasi at the end of the day, hindi naman puro first dose tayo. In fact, what matters most is really the second dose to provide ample protection. So meron naman sila umpisahan na nila habang wala pa yung karagdagang first dose. Sayang oras.
Nagse-second dose naman sila. We have a lot of photos of people getting second doses, especially in Manila.
Pero kulang pa rin.
Wala lang talaga kulang. And the vaccine
870 something lang eh.
Sabi nila, mid-July pa daw dadating yung yung fresh supplies. Mid-July, earliest. Second or third week. So, paano ngayon yung gagawin niya? Ang laki ng gap na yun. That's a 1 week lull in the vaccination.
Alam nyo, lahat tayo gusto natin na sapat ang bakuna na meron tayo. But we cannot control the production, the vaccine manufacturing companies talagang na-secure na ng 10% ng mga mayayaman bansa ang 80% of the global supply. At tayo, nagkakandara pa tayo, nakikipag-agawan tayo. And we have written the WHO, the UN, to really help fast-track the delivery of much-needed vaccines by the low to middle-income countries. COVAX, andyan. Mabuti nga COVAX, through it, marami na rin tayo mga donations na nakuha. And we would like to thank the benefactors. of the COVAX facility, through which a lot of our AstraZeneca, some Pfizer vaccines have been donated. No? Pero kulang pa rin talaga. May darating daw sa July 16 about 2.5 to 3 million doses of Sinovac. Sec Charlie told me that by the end of July, there will be a total of about 6 million doses of Sinovac. No? And then the good news is tomorrow, we will be receiving, I think, more than 1 million doses of AstraZeneca donated by Japan. And the President himself will be receiving it tomorrow sa airport. No? So pati yung Johnson, mag 3 million plus ang idodonate naman ng US. So hopefully this bulk of vaccines starts arriving, no? Before the end of the month para ma-restart natin yung vaccination activities in the various local government units. At yun pa rin, go ahead and still malayo pa rin kasi. Look, how many vaccines, how many doses have we had so far? Baka mga 17 or 18 billion. Ang nabakuna natin, mga 12 billion. So meron ka pang mga 6 million. That can still be used for your second jab. Malayo pa eh. Kaya ngayon na sinasabi namin eh. Hindi mo pwedeng antayin gamitin ito lahat for the first dose.
Pero at the rate we're going, Secretary, mamimit ba natin yung deadline natin na by Christmas, medyo masaya na tayo at meron ng, close to herd immunity as we possibly can get.
Supply permitting. There's always the colatilla there. Supply permitting. Kasi we have seen already, kaya natin July 1 to 5, we were able to jump, 1.2 million. Can you imagine that in just 5 days? Tandaan niyo March, April, May, we did 1 million in 3 months. We were able to improve the efficiencies, no? And as more vaccines started to come in, we were able to up our jabbing rate. And ito na nga, noong March, April, May, 1 million. June, naka 1 million tayo in 1 month, no? Ngayon, July, naka 1.2 million tayo. July 1 to 5 lang ito. So kaya na natin Andiyan na yung machinery. Kumbaga, no? Andiyan na yung sistema. So, bakuna
problema
na
lang, supply.
Supply na lang. Kasi,
sir, sabi nga nila, ang tagal na nating pinoproblema yung supply. January pa lang yun ang issue, no? So hanggang ngayon, kailan tayo, how do we get to a point where we are really sure that the supplies we ordered and the supplies committed to us from COVAX will arrive? Parang we seem to be at the mercy of some forces that we have no control over.
Yeah, you're right. As I have said earlier, exactly. No? But we are in constant communication. We follow up and best effort, and we've not been wavering on this. No? So we've been following up. Secretary Charlie Galvez, Secretary Vince Bison, and myself. Talagang kulitan to araw-araw. Kasi nga gusto natin marating yung 500,000 jobs per day. If we're able to get the supplies, no, at 500,000 per day and hitting a herd immunity target of 70 million, you divide that by 500,000, you're going to finish it in 140 days. So that's about 4 months and 20 days. No? So if you start counting, kakayanin mo yan. So July, August, September, October, November. Talking about November to about mid-December, baka maabot na natin ang herd immunity. But we're just talking about the first dose. You have to jab 143 million doses. Okay? So yung first jab mo, 70 million, and considering there's a time interval depending on the kind of vaccine, like Sinovac, 28 days. AstraZeneca is 12 weeks. No? So mag-aantay ka. So tingin ko, you will really carry over into the first month of 2022.
But Secretary, speaking to what Lucci mentioned, the things that are under our control. Of course, placing the order is within our control. That brings up a lot of memories for people on, how early did we order. But never mind that. My question is, once we do order and once we place our order, and it is now in the control of the people who are supposed to supply to us, what can go wrong? Even allowing for the logistics that they need on their end, and you factor that into the timeline, what else goes wrong on the side of the countries and the companies that are supposed to supply to us?
Well, I'll give you one very clear example. India, Serum Institute of India, SII, nagkaroon sila ng grabeng search. You and I know about the search caused by partly caused by the Delta variant. So yung manufacturing capacity ng SII, na itsipwera. Hindi sila nakapag-manufacture. They were supposed to do, I think, parang toll manufacturing for Astra and for Novavax. So, naantala lahat yan. Kasi nga, malaking problema sila sa India. Yung search nila, massive. Grabe talaga. So, ito ang isa sa mga dahilan. Meron din from the manufacturing side, yung raw materials. Diba? Remember, America, all of a sudden, adopted the policy na lahat ng raw materials sa kanila muna because they wanted to give protection to Americans first. So maraming mga ganitong mga externalities na talagang hindi natin wala tayong control nor influence for such things to occur in our favor. Remember kasi ang global supply talagang limited. The demand is just overwhelming. And there's not sufficient supply to meet the demand. So ganun na nangyayari.
Sir,
Para sa akin nga, gustong-gusto ko talaga tapusin na ito
Yes,
Kasi ito susi for us to really recover the once vibrant economy
Yes, sir.
and the
Sir,
normal
let me ask,
normalcy in the lives of every Filipino.
yes, sir. Let me ask about something we have control
Best
over.
effort tayo. Hirap tayo. COVAX nga din 44 million ang dapat nilang ibibigay sa atin. Pero ilan pa lang ang dumating. Ilang buwan na tayo na ikipagbunuan sa kanila.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Diba? Pfizer. I'll give you an example, Pfizer. Okay, remember, some people had accused me of dropping the ball. Okay? That was really no ball. That was an air ball. Okay? People were saying, dapat dumating ito noong January, but Duque did not sign the non-disclosure agreement in October. Of course, I signed it. Of course, I had to exercise due diligence. I will not just sign a document where it could be onerous for the Philippine government. It's my job to protect the interests of the government. And so, yan, pinirmahan ko yung confidentiality disclosure agreement after 4 or 5 days that it was reviewed by my legal. But this was October 24. I'll ask you, when did the first Pfizer doses arrive? Okay? They arrived May. May. October ko pinirmahan yung NDA. Of course, yung NDA, non-disclosure agreement, is not going to make you secure the vaccines because you have to go through 3 processes, the NDA, and then the term sheet, and then the supply agreement. E tandaan ninyo, dami-dami hiningi ng Pfizer, di ba? Gusto nila meron na indemnification law. Gusto nila, alam niyo lahat yun di ba? At kumain ng oras yan sa Senado. They had to craft a law on indemnification. So, and also, we did not want to be paying more just as Israel did. They paid 3 times more for the price of Pfizer. You cannot do that here. You'll go to jail if you do that here. Di ba? So, ang dami talaga mga limitations. Pati governance natin. So, ang dami pa inayos siya. Pati ADB, World Bank, ang Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank, ang governance standards nila, napakataas talaga yan.
Yes, sir.
So, talagang sinuri nila lahat ng mga supply agreements, no? Talagang tinignan nila, no? Yung, kumbaga, sinuyod nila yan. So, hindi
Sir,
mo makontrol yun dahil tayo umuutang.
Yes, sir.
And
Sir,
we
let me-
have to agree.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me ask you about something that we do have control over, which is the system by which we do the vaccinations. Just as an example, yung case dun sa Manila, when Manila implemented the by appointment system, which is par for the course in other LGUs, nilangaw po siya. Pero nung nag-free for all siya, kinuyog siya sa dami ng tao. So, I suppose in a way, you could look at it as a, is this one case where the system could be improved in terms of how the vaccination scheduling could be done?
Yeah. We are, syempre tayo, we are learning as we implement this, no? Kasi wala naman tayong playbook, no? We've never done something as massive on the immunization rollout as this one. And so it is good that the LGUs innovate and then each LGU learns from one's innovation. And if Manila is doing it well, pero kung sobrang naman dami ng tao and you also lead to super spreader events, may downside din yan. Ano? So, hindi basta-basta sinabi mo, sige, let's open it up, na wala ng registration, basta open na gano'n. Teka muna. Ibang panahon natin, ha? Meron pa tayong continuing threat of COVID. And now, variants are evolving. So, we gotta be careful. No? We cannot be reckless here. So, depende yan. Tagig, maganda sistema ng tagig, no? Tao, man. So, tingnan na lang natin, there's always room for improvement. There is always a way of doing things better. But we learn as we implement, so to speak. But these are all welcome, all the innovations, the best practices.
Secretary, in the meantime, yung Sinovac is asking for authorization to use its vaccine on children. Are we inclined to allow this for pediatric use? Kasi looking at what's happening with Pfizer, Pfizer na, merong mga masasama talaga, really serious side effects on what we're seeing in Israel, in the US. Are we open? Sabihin na natin na we don't have enough vaccines yet, but if we do have, papayagan ba natin yung pediatric use for vaccines at this time?
We defer to the Philippine Pediatric Society and other related specialty societies dealing with child health. No? So we will wait. Yun naman ang sabi nila. And si Dr. Ana Ong Lin, no? Is a member of the DOH Tactical Advisory Group of Experts. No? And they're currently looking into this. No? So tama ka, sa Sinovac, meron na silang information sent to FDA, 3 to 17 years of age pa nilang gamitin. Okay? Sa Pfizer kasi is, I think, 12 to 15, 12 to
15 nga.
13 to 15. Yeah, kasi Pfizer 16 and above, no? Pwedeng gamitin. But you know, lahat naman yan may side effects. But at the end of the day, you ask yourself, do the benefits outweigh the risk? Okay? And what's the answer to that? Would you not have your child vaccinated? But of course, para sa akin, mahirap ngayon eh. Hindi tayo pwede magsalita ng patapos dito dahil kailangan pa natin makuha recommendation ng Philippine Pediatric Society at saka yung Infectious Disease Society, PISMID. So we have to await what the set of recommendations will be. But realistically, it's premature to even talk about it now because you don't have enough supply. And the limited supply that we have to make sure that they are going to the priority groups, no? The A1, A2, A3. A2 is very, very important. And I have to drill this thing down. No? Yung mga matatanda, yan po talaga ang pinanggagalingan ng malaking porsyento ng mga namamatay. Yan po ang napupunta sa mga ICU. Yan po ang talagang nakakapag-overwhelm ng ating mga ospital. Ano po? Kanya dapat dito agresibo. Kung ano man yung bakunang meron tayo, ilaan talaga natin para sa A2. Once you're able to cover 9 million, because 9% of the population, Philippine population, accounts for senior citizens. No? Once we are able to complete at least 90 to 95% of them, you solve half of the problem. I tell you, you solve half of the problem. Mawawala na yung hospital mo na mabibilaukan, na mawawala na yung mga overwhelm, ang mga doktor, nurses, ang mga healthcare workers. No? So, at I would like to also take the opportunity to commend our frontline healthcare workers, no? The doctors, the nurses, the medtechs. They've done so well, and we've managed to keep our case fatality rate relatively low at 1.7%, okay, of all the cases, no? Yan yung ating data in terms of case fatality. And they have improved so well in the clinical management, and they have been able to save lots of lives, no? Of especially the elderly. So, balik natin, ang importante dito, priority pa rin, yung mga matatanda. And then next, people with comorbidities, katulad ni Luchi. Si Luchi, maraming comorbidities ito, pero ayaw pa magpabakuna.
Pasok yan sa
Okay?
A2 tsaka sa A3? Ganun ba?
Oo, sa A3 lang, hindi A2.
I am part of the problem, yes.
Okay.
So, yun lang. At the end of the day, the question is, given all these reported side effects, by the way, ang minor side effects, what? Less than 1%. 0.4%. 0.4 to 0.6%.
Pero
Now,
serious
side effects, 0.0009%. Ganun kababa.
Yun
Kaya
naman pala.
Heart problems na matay.
Parang hindi pa convincing.
Problema.
May namatay. Pero syempre, hindi naman natin hawak-hawak yung kanyang medical record. Ano ba yan? Ano ba ikinamatay nito? Baka meron ng comorbidity, di ba?
Wala daw.
Kaya meron tayong NAFIC, kaya meron tayo sistema, yung National Adverse Event Following Immunization Committee. We have national, we have regional, and local AFIC. No? So, importante yan to establish causality. Kung may namatay, is it because of the vaccine? And so, they have to do that assessment, no? Causality assessment. Okay? So, meron tayo yan. Inihanda na po yan as part of our national vaccine deployment and rollout. No?
You mentioned Dr. Ana Ong Lim, sabi din niya, you are considering daw booster shot for people who received Sinovac. Is this a serious undertaking?
You know, it's premature to even talk about booster shots. No? Booster shots kasi, that's third dose na. So, tapusin muna natin yung 2-dose inoculation before we even talk about booster shots. And my sentiment is very strong that first world countries are already securing, booster doses.
Yes.
Grabe naman. Ang dami pang hindi nakakatanggap ng first dose. Usapan na nila yung booster shots, third dose na. Sinisecure na naman nila.
Secretary, this is in line with the spread of the variant. Kaya sinisiguro daw nila, especially with what's happening in countries such as Indonesia, nakikita nila, kahit man lang daw sa frontliners muna, parang yun ang binabalak na mag-booster shots.
Okay naman yun. Kasi dapat tandaan din natin, ang strategy natin, hindi naman pwedeng bakuna lang, lalo na kulang ang supply. So, yung public health standards, ipagpapatuloy natin yan. We have to really have a greater or even more disciplined compliance to minimum public health standards. Very practicable, di ba? Face shield, face mask, physical distancing, avoiding poorly ventilated areas, etc. And then, of course, the PDITR, no? The prevention, the early detection through active case finding, isolation, contact tracing, and treatment and reintegration, of course, plus vaccination. No? So yung bakuna is just one of the strategic pillars in our pandemic response.
Okay.
So it cannot be just one approach. It has to be a broad front approach.
Secretary,
So,
Secretary,
In view of the variants, no, and now may lambda pa na supposedly mas transmissible, and in view of the delay in the vaccines, no, ang tanong ng maraming tao, Secretary Duque, ay, so, kailan ba tayo, napakabagal, we have got to have the longest lockdown that we know, no? And in fact, many are calling our lockdown the longest lockdown in the world, or at least one of them. And parang ngayon, na nadidelay na naman yung vaccines, tapos may mga bagong variant. What are we looking at? Are we looking at, longer lockdowns na naman? Or a really slow pace of loosening restrictions? Kasi parang talagang every 15 days, ang hirap ibuka ng ekonomiya natin, no? At ng mga activities natin. Are we seeing more of this because of the supplies and the variants put together?
well, multifactorial, ano? Yung spikes kasi, nakikita natin even countries with relatively high vaccination coverage, no? Like UK, sumipa, ano? I think Germany.
Israel also.
Israel.
Actually.
Oo. So, at the other end, yung India, no? Indonesia, no? We don't want that to happen to us, okay? We don't want to have more cases and more deaths and more overwhelmed, overstretched health systems capacities. No? So there's wisdom in the way we are managing the pandemic. It's not excellent. It's far from excellent, you know. But as I always say, there is room for improvement. We got to learn from the best practices of other countries, just as they also learn from us. Now, if you talk about the Philippines being the longest
Ultra-conservative. Yeah.
Yung tayo kasi prudent, mas conservative tayo. It's a very difficult balancing act. This has never been easy from the know that. No? But we have to be always proceeding with caution. The easiest thing to do is to relax. The easiest thing to do is to remove the restrictions. Sikat pa tayo. Maraming yung galing natin, yung ekonomiya natin, okay, buluksan na natin lahat. Pero anong kapalit? At the end of the day, let me ask you that. Increase mobility. Meron ka ngayon papasok na mga variants. May lambda ka, tama yung sinabi mo. Meron ka ng delta, may alpha, may beta, may gamma. And then, what? What's next after that? You're gonna have spikes. Diba? Buti nga tayo, nakita natin, July, August spike natin last year. We were able to bring it out.
Secretary, mukhang
Naghang.
nagka-technical
I'm afraid
problems.
we lost the secretary there. Should we go into a gap?
Wala tayong bakuna.
Okay, here we go.
Ayan na.
Hi,
September, October, November,
Ayan na siya.
December, January, iba ba, Christmas tayo, All Souls Day, ang daming super spreader events. Pero yung mga tao natin, naging disiplinado sila sa pagsunod sa minimum public health standard. Walang bakuna yan, ha? But we were able to bring down NCR to 400 cases a day. The whole of NCR. The Philippines at that time, research natin, February, first 2 weeks of February, we were doing what? 2,000 na lang, the whole country. NCR was 400 new cases per day. Okay? So ngayon, nakita naman natin, ganun din, no? Napababa na naman natin ng NCR. Ngayon, may bakuna na tayo. Hopefully, mas mabilis pa na mas mapababa natin But we're also moving towards more localized lockdowns, no?
Okay.
Granular lockdowns, rather than widespread community quarantine.
Secretary, no, of course, obviously, all of these things still on your plate. If you don't mind, I'd like to throw one other thing there on top of everything that you have to deal with in real time. Now, allegations from Senator Manny Pacquiao of corruption in the DOH when he was challenged by President Duterte to name agencies where there is corruption. Number one on the list niya kagad, top of his mind, DOH. As you know, he's called for an investigation before he flew to the United States. But I'm just wondering if you've had occasion to have a conversation or to address in any way directly with Senator Pacquiao his allegations of corruption, his allegations of irregularities in the procurement of vaccines and so on.
Zero. We had zero occasion for any dialogue or conversation. Wala. Zero. But nevertheless, what we did was on the same day, he mentioned the DOH as being one of the corrupt agencies that he was going to expose. We sent already the budget utilization report. Because if you recall, in that, on the day that he mentioned about the DOH, sinabi niya, Dr. Duque, Secretary Duque, handa na ba kayong ipakita, ipaalam kung paano niyo ginastos ang budget ng Department of Health? Yung mga pinamili ninyong face mask, personal protective equipment, testing kits na sinabi niya rapid daw, wala namang binibiling rapid test kits ang DOH. Ang binibili ng DOH, yung gold standard RT-PCR testing kits, yung mga pinamili namin na mga life-saving mechanical ventilators, yung mga high-flow nasal cannula, etc. We already gave the good senator the budget utilization for Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2 budgets, and also partly of the GAA. No? Siyempre yung GAA hanggang December 31, 2021 pa yan. Ano? But suffice it to say that for Bayanihan 1, we were able to obligate 98%. Okay, for Bayan 2, we were able to obligate 93%. We can give the particulars of the disbursements. No? We're ready to do that, and that's our job, to be accountable. No? As Secretary of Health, I have to make sure that there is sufficient governance mechanisms in place to ensure that there's accountability, there is transparency, and that performance is towards achieving the outcomes that we have set for ourselves in our strategic plan. No? So, binigay po natin yan. So sumunod na naman, meron na naman nilabas si the good Senator Manny Pacquiao. Sinabi niya, bumibili daw ang DOH ng mga near-expired na mga medicines. Mali po yun eh. Bawal po yun, illegal po yung bibili ka ng gamot na near-expiry. Dahil meron po tayong panuntunan sa FDA. Nakalagay po dyan, depende sa gamot, depende sa produkto. May nakalagay po dyan anywhere from 12 to 60 months. Yan ang mga shelf life o expiration period ng mga supplies o ng mga gamot, syrup, tablets, caplets, vaccines. Vaccines nga, 6 months lang ang kanyang expiration. So, kailangan dito pinag-aaralan. No? Kailangan dito inaaral mo, iniisa-isa mo yan, titignan mo. Kasi madali naman magsalita di ba? Magsalita, corrupt si ganito, corrupt si ganon. Pero at the end of the day, the onus, the burden of proof rests with the one who alleges. Diba? That's elemental. I mean, that is fundamental.
Okay, Health Secretary Francisco.
So, para sa akin po, kung ano yung gusto mga papeles, pinadadala po natin at sasagutin po natin yan. Wala naman po tayong itinatago at tayo po naman ay ating tugon sa pandemyang ito. Kagaya nun, yung sa vaccine, sabi niya, yung inutang ninyo, saan nyo dinala yan? Una-una yung inutang natin, 70 billion pesos for pag-angkat ng mga bakuna natin. walang dumadaan na pera sa kaban ng DOH. Yan po, binabayaran direktamente ng World Bank, ADB, AIIB sa mga vaccine manufacturing companies. And they actually do partial payment and then staggered payments depending on a certified delivery schedule ng mga vaccines. You cannot just pay. Kailangan, where are the goods? When are you bringing them in? Ano yung schedule? So tinitingnan lahat yan, part of the very stringent governance and regulatory standards, no?
Yes, sir.
Of those funding agencies, multilateral funding agencies. So, ano, lahat, sinagot na nga, di ba? Nagpunta na nga kami sa Senado, 8 hours kami, marathon hearing, June 14. Wala man kami narinig ng isang tanong nagpaliwanag si Secretary Charlie Galvez, Secretary Weya Abisado, Secretary Dominguez, myself, Secretary Vince Dizon. Sinagot namin lahat. Kompleto. We had our presentations. The question is, meron ba kaming narinig na tanong? Wala. Galing kay the good Senator Manny. Wala naman. Pagkaisahan na lang natin to, Senator Manny. Kailangan dito i-knock out natin yung COVID-19.
Sir, may bala ng konti, sir. Huling-huli na lang. Sir, kayo pa yung nagulat nung press ko ng Pangulo nung July 1, pinatanggal niya sa reporter yung face mask at face shield? Kasi that's coming 1 week after he required again the wearing of face masks and face shields indoors.
Minsan talaga si Pangulo nahihirapan huminga pagka yung naka-face mask siya. Kaya may tinatanggal niya at nahihirapan daw siya magsalita pati. So, anyway, importante, mas madalas siya naka-face mask kaysa hindi.
Okay. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, sir.
Thank
we hope
you,
to
sir.
have you again. Ingat po.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Salamat, sir.
It's good to have you
I'm
again.
so happy to see you guys again. I hope we can do this in the afternoons rather than in the evenings.
Face to face.
Face to face.
Pag nag-normalize na.
Mukhang pinatay na nga ilaw sa likod ninyo eh. Maraming salamat, sir. Ingat po.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po sa lahat at nakikiusap po ako sa ating mga kababayan na huwag po tayo magiging pabaya, huwag po tayong let's not put our guard down. Ngayon na lalo pang kakaunti pa rin, mababa pa rin po yung atin vaccination coverage, paigtingin pa rin po natin ang pagsunod, disiplinadong pagsunod sa minimum public health standards. At tumalima po tayo sa mga panuntunan ng inyong Department of Health at ng Interagency Task Force for Emerging Infectious Diseases. Maraming salamat po
Thank you, sir.
sa lahat sa inyo. Magandang
Thank you,
gabi
sir.
po.
We'll just go into a break, so please stay with us.
Welcome back to Chiefs here on One News. We'll be joined in a while by Major General Edgar Arevalo, spokesperson for the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Later on, we'll talk about... ready na ba si General? Okay, so sorry about that. General Arevalo, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Good evening,
Hi,
General.
sir.
Salamat po. And of course, we have you here to get some updates and the latest information that we have on that unfortunate, fatal crash of the C-130 Patikul in Sulu. Let's start with that, sir. Meron po ba tayong update? We know we got the black box. We know it's going to take some time for the information from that black box to be retrieved. But in the meantime po, what are the updates on what we know about the crash?
Nako,
No.
I think we lost General.
Nawala ulit.
Nawala
Wala uli siya.
si General. While we're waiting, I did want to touch on some of the things that Secretary Duque mentioned kanina. A lot of interesting things, a lot of good updates, but at the same time, yung inumpisahan ng kwentuhan natin, di ba? Parang nakaka-dismaya rin talaga na hanggang ngayon, even the database for people who got shots, apparently, I mean, in so many words, the bottom line is that data is not going anywhere, hasn't been captured, it's not interoperable, and it's complicating a lot of our lives. Yun ang punot dulo actually ng issue ng mga LGUs ngayon.
In the same way na yung contact tracing database that was first launched, soft launched, third quarter last year.
Last year.
And na-launch na talaga formally
Kaya wala pa rin contact
first
tracing
quarter
ngayon,
this year. So it also took them some time.
Oh. And
No, ako nga, I'm wondering, ito na si General Arevalo. Yeah, I
Okay.
think we should
Sige.
bring him in.
General Arevalo.
General, are you back? General?
wala pa rin.
Okay,
Wala pa rin talaga. But you were saying, Luchi.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying, di ba, na we were talking about the app, no? Parang yun kasi, it stands out. And I'm wondering now whether it should be the DICT indeed that we should call into account for it. Sila ba talaga ang gagawa nun? Sila ba? But, they've had, over a year to do this,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Oh. At saka when
parang pasahan no?
Tsaka
Parang, ano ba ito, pinapasa sa DICT and
oh,
Yun ang sabi ni
but
Mayor
stay safe
Gina
isn't
kanina.
even
Yun ang sabi niya kanina.
stay safe
Matagal
is not even really DICT, di ba?
Hindi, DICT
stay safe.
sinabi niya.
DICT ba yun?
Sinabi niya na dapat, yun daw ang inaasahan nila from DICT na saka medyo matagal na nga daw dapat. Dapat bago nag-roll out pa ng vaccination, inumpisahan na yon.
Oh,
So,
but
bakit ngayon kung kailan na nagkukumahog lahat, kung
Exactly.
kailan eto na, di ba?
Oh,
Tapos, kaya hinarang ng mga governors yung plan to do away with the RT-PCR and replace them with the vaccination cards dahil nga sa problema.
I mean, the operative word was precisely what Ami said, di ba? Yun yung tanong ni Ami. Wala bang coordination to? Because these are questions that are not only being asked by different agencies, paulit-ulit at every stage, di ba? We asked it nung testing, nagsisharing ba ng data yung different testing centers. Sa contact tracing, that was the question of LGUs and the private sector. Are we sharing the data? When they were generating QR codes, people were talking about interoperability of QR codes. Pagkatapos ngayon sa testing, like we said, I mean, to get your shots, you have to go through IT. You have to go through a website. You have to enter, it's all there. And yet, that question of interoperability, in his words, parang ngayon pala nag-uumpisa yung protocols to establish so that people will know how to let their data play with each other.
Although I would
Kami
imagine
walang QR code.
it's database management and integration. It's not actually it's not a medical issue by itself. So and at the same time, DOH should have a lot on its plate already as it is.
Yeah, but when it's asked of quote unquote them or an agency, in fairness, people are not asking a specific agency.
Yeah.
Because there's an interagency task force. So the question is actually to the whole of government precisely.
So dapat trabaho pa rin yan ng IATF in short, di ba? And I don't think we're lacking in computer programmers to come up with something so basic, di ba? So parang it really makes you wonder, saan
Interoperability lang dapat.
Not only are we not lacking, we know for a fact at
It's not
every
even
stage,
programming.
ang dami. Di ba? Ang daming suppliers, ang daming people volunteering, ang daming people pointing it out. The issue was, for a time, not lack of capacity, was just choosing or setting the rules for establishing.
here he is.
No.
Here he is. Before we lose him again, let's call him in, no? Yeah?
Sige, subukan. Sige.
Oo.
Kala ko
yeah.
mag-extra
Sige,
na.
General
General.
Arevalo?
Nawala.
Hello, General
Wala po
Arevalo
talaga.
there.
Talagang
General?
wala. I think
Magandang gabi po.
No, he's here. He's here.
Sining.
Yeah.
Sige, we'll hold on.
Gandang gabi po.
General, Good evening po. We will hold on. We'll extend for a bit general level very quickly. Updates po. What do we know about the crash in Patikul at this point?
At this point, we have recovered already the so-called black box. It contains a cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder. With this, we hope to find out what are the technical details that we needed to know, not from the perspective of the one who saw it or the video recording that we saw in social media. However, the challenge to us is that we still have to send it to a facility in the United States for them to, excuse me, for them to look at this, to open, interpret, and analyze it for us. Wala po tayong capability to open and determine what's inside.
Matagal pa
General, I'll go, yeah.
In the meantime,
matagal.
nagsalita na si Defense Secretary Lorenzana and of course AFP na mukhang pilot error daw and mukhang yung runway maiksi kasi. And,
Ma'am, with all due respect to the good secretary, I think that is the impression that he has with respect to the data or information that is available para sa kanya. But I know that the secretary would concede that the final and conclusive determination as regards to what really happened ay nandito po sa technical information na makukuha natin dito sa so-called na black box because nandito po yung sa cockpit voice recorder, dito natin maririnig yung mga last minutes or seconds na conversation between the pilot and the crew or the pilot and the control tower. And then doon po sa flight data recorder, makikita natin yung ibang detail as to, hindi po ko piloto, pero it's a flight data recorder that would tell us the details about the flight itself. So doon po natin malalaman with conclusivity kung ano talaga yung totoong nangyari. Because as of now, kung pakikinggan po natin yung mga cellphone video na nakita natin, sinasabi nilang mabilis, pero yun po from what's the perspective ng nakatingin. No, wala po tayo sa instrument, yung instrument po na nakalagay doon na makukuha natin, ang information sa flight data recorder, magsasabi sa atin kung yung approach speed is kinakailangan. Yun ang tama. Now, ma'am, with regard to the sinasabing length ng runway, kaya po yan Kaya po yan ng C-130. That's not the first time that C-130 landed in Hulo. I think yung Pag-asa Island na po natin, if not kasing haba, is not mas maiksi, is kasing haba ng runway dyan sa Hulo. At nakakaland naman po ang C-130 kahit sa Pag-asa Island na medyo rough pa nga po ang surface. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, General, ang concern ng marami ngayon ay nung malaman namin na yan na lang pala ang C-130 right now na ginagamit, no, dahil yung 2 or 3 iba pa ay nasa Portugal and undergoing maintenance. So the question now is, which aircraft will take the place of the C-130, which is considered the workhorse of the military, especially in this time of typhoons, no? For the vaccine rollout and relief goods.
We understand the concern, ma'am. Ang C-130 is a heavy lift aircraft. Meron pa rin po tayong medium lift aircraft, yun pong C-295 na tinatawag natin. It can also carry cargo and personnel, pero hindi kasing dami ng kayang ikarga ng C-130. As you were saying, ma'am, alam nyo, meron po naman tayong mga contingency measures kung mga pagkakataong katulad nito. And according to the information that I got, yung isa pong isang C-130 na nasa Portugal is expected to be delivered within the month. But be that as it may, kailangan po natin munang malaman kung ano ang matapos ang investigasyon para ma-allow uli natin na mag-take off o magamit itong eroplanong ito sapagkat mahalaga yung informasyon na yun para makita natin kung meron ba tayong pagkukulang, meron kailangan i-adjust in terms of our doctrines, in our procedure, upang sa ganon ay kampante tayo na safe natin uling ilipad. After all, ma'am, kaya po ito lumilipad is because meron po siyang desired number of flying hours. Yung pong sinasabi nila na worn out, hindi po totoo yun. Bagaman hindi siya brand new na C-130, it still has more than 11,000 flying hours na pwede niyang ilipad na siya ay airworthy hanggang sa next maintenance, 11,000 flying hours. Just to illustrate, ma'am, ang isang biyahe buhat sa Manila hanggang Zamboanga via C-130 will not even reach 3 hours. So, ibig sabihin, ganun pa po kahaba ang period na pwede siyang lumipad na siya ay airworthy. Kaya hindi po totoo yung sinasabi na hindi siya airworthy. Hindi po ililipad ng ating mga piloto yan. They will not
Yes,
risk
sir.
their lives or their own lives, the life of the crew and the life of the passengers and the
Sir.
aircraft itself, kung alam nila at hindi sila sigurado na ito ay airworthy.
Yes, sir. Sir, we talked
Pero
to the
may mga
family of
sige, go ahead.
we talked to
Go ahead.
one of the families we talked to one of the families of those who died, isang sundalo. Ang nakausap kasi nila yung kamag-anak nila nung Sabado eh. Ang sabi sa kanila
Yeah. Opo.
ng sundalo Sabado talaga sila dapat lumipad ng Holo pero na-postpone ng
Sira.
Linggo dahil may aberya.
Yeah.
Ed,
Yung
medyo
aeroplano.
nag-choppy yung signal mo, Ed.
Yes, sir. Well, ang sabi ng sundalo daw doon sa kanyang pamilya, Sabado pa sila dapat lumipad papuntang Holo pero na-postpone ng Linggo dahil nagka-aberya ang eroplano. We'd like to check lang with you if you have any information
Yes.
on that.
Hindi ko masagot yan exactly, pero sa pagkakaalam natin, yun talagang schedule niya. Alam nyo, minsan ang schedule hindi nasusunod as published kasi may mga reason. Minsan may weather. Minsan may mga kailangan, kasi lilipad sila, kailangan ma-maximize natin yung capacity. Meaning, kung pwede natin siyang may sakay, na pwede nating ma-drive sa lakad na yon o sa flight na yon, ginagawa natin. But I really cannot answer that particular claim, Ed. But just to put it to context, may mga pagkakataon talaga na nagdi-delay yung flight ng eroplano, hindi dahil sa may problema or aberya, kundi merong mga reasons that are related to the mission. Halimbawa, kung pwedeng i-delay mo ng isang araw dahil meron kang cargo na kailangan mong maikarga, pero bukas pa siya available, pwede nating i-reschedule siya for tomorrow para sa ganun, ma-accommodate natin. Sayang yung isang lipad. That's from our point of view. Hindi ko alam exactly yung situation na sinasabi sa atin.
Okay. Well, we'd like to thank you, sir, for coming online. Even though medyo na nagka-problema tayo ng konti sa umpisa. Pero, sir, maraming
Sir,
salamat for
update
joining
ko lang,
us.
Ed, update ko lang. Doon sa 49 na namatay,
Namatay.
19 na dito ang na-identify.
Okay.
Sa 19 na yan, 11 ang na-transport na sa kanilang pamilya, 7 ang for airlift, and as we speak, since kaninang umaga pa ito data, it's possible na itong 7 ay na-airlift na rin, so total of around 18. And then yung isa, nakauwi na rin pero nailibing na. The rest, the remaining 30 are still for identification through the help of the PNP SOCO. Gusto lang nating i-assure ang ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po yung mga relatives ng mga namatay, na gagawin po natin na lahat ng kaparaanan upang sa ganun ay talagang sigurado tayo that when we say na itong remains na ito, dahil nga po sunog yung kanilang mga bangkay, ay itong remains na ito na i-turn over natin sa kanyang pamilya, ayun talaga ang kanilang kaanak. Kaya po medyo natatagalan tayo. But we are trying our best to do that upang sa ganun, sigurado tayo na lahat na nararapat sa kanya na honors bilang isang hero na namatay in line of duty. And of course, lahat ng benefits at lahat ng assistance na kailangan niya ay matatanggap niya buhat sa ating pamahalaan at sa sandatahang lakas ng Pilipinas.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure we would all appreciate that. Maraming salamat po, General Edgard Arevalo, ang spokesperson tagapagsalta ng Armed Forces of the Philippines.
General.
Salamat
Thank you,
po,
sir.
General.
And that'll be all for this Wednesday edition of The Chiefs. We hope to discuss here. We'll keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Mami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.